What's up, folks? Coach Ingrid here at your service once again. We are going to talk about possibly the world's second most executed lift called the squat. I say it's the second because I think that deadlift is probably the third because most of us pick up stuff from the ground way more often in a deadlift position than we do in a squat position, unless you're a lady and you're wearing a skirt. Then we lift for a squat. Anyway, okay, let's talk about it. There are 5 points I want to hit here. Let's talk about the most important one, and probably the most controversial one. It's squat stance. Okay, squat stance. Contradictory to what many coaches think, squat stance is incredibly variable based on your hip position, based on your femur length, based on what you're comfortable with, based on your dorsiflexion. Somebody who's 5'9" can have a squat that is incredibly different to someone who's 5'3", and somebody who's 6'4" can have the exact same squat to somebody who's 5'4". Okay, so basically it's a mixture of what you're comfortable with and what works with your body. Okay, here's the deal. I spent forever trying to have a pretty squat stance that looked like this, that looked like a ballerina squat. And although I can get there, look how wide my feet are. This is not a stable position for me, and I probably couldn't hold 300 pounds on my back like that. Okay, so then I'm going to straighten out my feet, bring it in, because some slim-hipped male told me that my feet needed to be only hip-width apart, and I have slim hips but a big butt. And they were like, yeah, just do it like this. Guess what? I can't hold that position very comfortably at the bottom of my squat. I just fall over, okay? That's ridiculous. Don't fight your own physiology. So after about a year trying to have one of those beautiful, pretty squats, what I just decided to do was widen my squat stance, okay? And that worked wonders for me. I can go all the way down, and I can, at this point in time, I can successfully squat 215. My goal is 250, but that worked for me. And my efforts were validated when I went to a coaching clinic and a professional weightlifter, female weightlifter, told her, what the F are you doing with that tiny little squat stance in your lack of dorsiflexion? Why don't you just widen your squat stance? Okay. The other thing is, if ladies, if you get coached by a slim-hipped male, and like, I say that like it's a slur. No, but seriously, if you get coached by a slim-hipped male that is going to tell you, oh, you need to bring your squat stance in, make it like little and tiny, your squat is too wide, that's ridiculous. Men's hips and pelvis and femurs, men's pelvis and femurs are set up completely differently. Women have a wider pelvis, okay, for childbearing. And we also have this thing called the Q angle, so that instead of our femurs coming down in straight lines out of our hips, they're actually in like this, okay? So for some female athletes, for some females, it's not quite as pronounced as this, but they're not, typically the female femurs coming out of the hip socket are not in straight lines. They're a little bit inward, okay? And for that, we need a different squat stance. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? The other thing, unless you were born in a country like, to be honest, any third world country or any country where they tend to squat a lot, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of dorsiflexion. So if you're from like the Americas or a westernized country, you are not going to have that beautiful squat that you see in those National Geographic where they can just sit like this for hours and hours. Your feet are going to come up off the floor. Also, nothing wrong with that. You can make this dorsiflexion a long-term project. I've seen many people correct their dorsiflexion by sort of by stretching that a lot. But to be honest, like, it might not be worth it to change your dorsiflexion like that. Like, who cares? Just get a wider squat stance. Make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you can get your hips below your hip crease below your knees so that you're squatting below parallel. Yeah, and make sure that you can move weight in it. All right, so that's squat stance. Oh, again, another wonderful way to test your squat stance is just relax. You're going to Adjust my camera because I'm the cameraman today too. Okay. Okay, so you're going to relax, just jump up and down, have your everything nice and loose, and stop. Look down, that's probably your squat stance. Okay? Boom, we found it. All right, let's go to the squat setup. Okay, so here we go. We are at the gym. We've approached the squat bar, and it looks like a monster has squatted. Okay, if you're like many females in the world, you're going to be shorter than the average male. So the squat rack is typically going to look like this. Okay, most women take the whole barbell down, put it on the ground, adjust the J hooks, and then put it back up. I'll show you an easier way. This is how the pros do it. Make sure your barbell's not drunk. Bam! Put those good shoulders to use, ladies. They're there for a reason, okay? All right, here we go. We've set up our squat. Okay, so what level should this be at? I always encourage my clients and athletes to set up the squat bar at collarbone height or just below, and typically collarbone height, because you're going to hold that barbell somewhere between just at the start of the back of your neck up here or between your shoulder blades right on the scapula, right along this bony process right here, okay? Bam. All right, so it's going to be between here. The worst thing that can happen when you're squatting, well, actually there are a lot of bad things, but one of the very not smooth things that can happen is you've got 250 pounds on the bar and you walk forward and you have to stand on your tippy toes in order to rack that barbell. You don't want to do that. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. You just want to walk straight to the rack, boom, have it hit the rack and drop down onto the J hooks, okay? So that means that the barbell is going to be just below, okay? So if I'm in a front squat, I can just get rid of it, all right? So always have that J hook below. All right, so another good one that we're gonna talk about is approaching the lift and ending the lift, starting and ending position. I am a stickler for technique and for methodology, just doing the same thing over and over and over again. I want you to approach a lift the same way every single time. Okay, so 5 pounds feels like 45 pounds, feels like 450. Okay, so what I like to do, we're gonna do this backwards just because J hooks are set up backwards. Here's what I do. I go ahead and approach the barbell, get into my starting and ending position, turn those feet into the floor, turn on those external rotators, squeeze the butt, tuck the hips underneath, pull the rib cage down, turn the chest up, shoulders back, chin parallel to the floor. All right, that's my starting and ending position. Put the hands on. Here we go. Hup. Take a step back. And I'm still in that starting position, except the only difference is now the barbell is on my back. Okay, execute the lift and come back up. Okay, so that starting position, boom, like feet, hips, shoulders, that happened 3 times. It happened before I touched the bar, it happened right when I got loaded on the bar, and it happened right after I executed the lift. Okay, so you need to make sure that you're starting and stopping at the same time. I see this a lot. All right, that's a whole lot of energy wasting nonsense thrown into the squat when you could have just been steadfast in your starting and ending position, okay? Taking the time and energy to figure out how you're gonna start and how you're gonna stop is going to save you so many injuries. It's going to save you so much time, and it's going to save you so much energy as you're lifting, okay? So do that. All right, so let's talk about the hip motion, and then we're going to talk about the ugly butt squeeze. Okay. Hip motion, when you're doing the squat, you're going to move your hips. Just the cameraman. I know it's officially summer in Los Angeles, so I'm sweating through all my clothes. Whoop, whoop. All right, so we are going to talk about this. All right, love the camera. There we go. So the hip motion, you're going to set your hips. You're going to put your hips back, then bend your knees, come all the way down, and then especially if it's heavy, press up on the barbell and scoop your hips up underneath. Okay. One more time. You're going to come down. Scoop your hips up underneath, as opposed to just moving through, okay? Here's why. The barbell is coming straight down here, and then your lower back is super loaded, and your glutes are totally unengaged in this lift, okay? So we put our hips back behind us, then scoop them up underneath so that all of this musculature through the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, everything is tilted up, stacked right underneath where we have that barbell load, and it is supported, okay? So move, especially when you're doing it for a lot of reps, you're just gonna focus on the forward and backward motion of your hips. Second portion of that is every single one of these squats is going to end in the ugly butt squeeze, okay? Again, we talked about this Instagram girl booty squat, right? Completely unengaged. We want to move back, scoop under, and squeeze, 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 squeeze. If you squeeze hard enough, your butt is going to eat your pants. It might get stuck there, and it might look like you have little dimples of cellulite. That's why we call it the ugly butt squeeze. But guess what? That ugly butt squeeze is going to get you the nicest tush you've ever seen, okay? That's why we end all of our deadlifts with that ugly butt squeeze. That's why we incorporate that into all of our overhead presses, okay? Because literally your glutes is the backbone of your backbone. And it needs to be strong, and you need to protect it, and you need to move it correctly, okay? So you have that squat, go down, squeeze. Go down, squeeze. Okay? And there's my 5 tips for the squat.